everybody. This is Keith Gleason, host of Indie Comics Relay, creator of the Mighty Mascots, and promoter for the Plastic City Comic Con. And I'm here with another review for Transformers #1. Now, this is Transformers #1 by Skybound Entertainment, published through Image Comics. The credits for the book are writer-artist is Daniel Warren Johnson, colorist is Mike Spicer, and the letterer is Russ Wooton. I read this book, and I don't know if you guys know the history here. It's like the Skybound Entertainment, Robert Kirkman's company, has the license for Transformers and I think most of the Hasbro universe stuff. And so they're doing a whole relaunch, and it was kind of like a secret thing. No one knew that this was coming because Robert Kirkman had kept it under wraps. And then people found out with Void Rivals #1, which had a cameo appearance from Jetfire from the Autobots in Transformers. So, but yeah, let's get into the review here a little bit. So let me give you a quick summary of this first issue. I'm going to read this off of the Skybound Image Comics website. All new Transformers era starts here. Superstar creator Daniel Warren Johnson, alongside Energon Universe showrunner Robert Kirkman, reimagines Hasbro's robots in disguise for a brand new generation. Optimus Prime was supposed to have led the Autobots to victory. Instead, the fate of Cybertron is unknown, and his allies have crash-landed far from home alongside their enemies, the Decepticons. As these titanic forces renew their war on Earth, one thing is immediately clear: the planet will never be the same. New alliances are struck, battle lines are redrawn, and humanity's only hope of survival is Optimus Prime. Discover the Transformers like you've never seen them before. Good summary, and it's hard to get into the first issue without spoiling a lot. I will say this: it's definitely a great new start to the Transformers. I know they've been in comic forms, since Marvel Comics had them back in the 80s, and I think Image eventually had Transformers back in the early 2000s, and then IDW had it for a long time. And I kind of stopped reading it back in, I think, when it was still at Marvel. I kind of grew out of Transformers. And, I think I checked out a couple issues of the one that Image put out in the early 2000s, but I didn't touch anything with the IDW stuff. I just kind of didn't care anymore. But Kirkman has this way of creating excitement for this whole franchise, and they're doing Transformers, but they're also doing GIJoe. And they have a couple of GIJoe miniseries, and I'm assuming they have more stuff planned. And then there's also the Void Rivals comic, which is part of what they're calling the Energon universe that has all this stuff in it. So Void Rivals is, if you haven't read it, is kind of like a fun, it reminds me of that movie Enemy Mine. And it's about two warring alien species that can't get along with each other, but are kind of forced into working together, and but the first issue was a real surprise. And I remember I was working at the comic store, and everyone was excited, oh my god, Kirkman's got Transformers. And you could just feel the excitement because a lot of people were adding it to the subs, Transformers, Void Rivals, and all the GIJoe stuff. And yeah, so it's been great. And the one thing I like about this #1 of Transformers is it is a relaunch. So it felt so if you've seen the Generation 1 Transformers cartoon, especially the pilot, it feels like that, but redone in a different way. A little more, I don't want to say darker, but a little more adult, I guess. But same premise. There's, the kid Spike, and they find, an earthquake uncovers the Transformers ship. And then Teletram 1 starts to wake up the Transformers. And it's kind of interesting, even though it's the same redo of that storyline, a lot of things are different. the Decepticons start out with Starscream. Like Megatron is not part of this opening issue. I think they're building up to Megatron, which is really cool. So Starscream kind of takes charge, and Optimus is right there, and a few other robots are woken up, but like because there's like a lack of energon, they could only wake up a few. So it's starting off very small with just a couple Transformers on both the Autobot and the Decepticon side, but I really like it. And this is actually my first time reading anything by Daniel Warren Johnson, and I've heard the name. Like I know he's like I'm in Massachusetts. I know he's a fellow Massachusetts native. Even in the back of the book, he mentions going to Bedrock Comics, which is about 30 minutes from me. And so it's interesting. I don't think he's still in Massachusetts, but he grew up here and stuff. And he just talked about, if you read the first issue in the back, there's like a commentary by Daniel, and he was just talking about how much Transformers meant to him as a kid, and how they kind of informed like his like artistic vision, like how he like learned how to draw based off like Optimus Prime, and how like the angles and everything kind of informed him as an artist. And I gotta say, the artwork is great. Like Daniel Warren Johnson is not only a good writer, but his art is solid too. It's really good. The other thing that stood out to me in this issue was the lettering by Russ Wooten. It has like a very like a drawn style to it, like all the sound effects and the punches, like because half the issue is like a little bit of a battle between Starscream and Optimus Prime, and there's a lot of like fun like sound effects in the background, all hand drawn. Right, kind of reminds me of my friend Frankie B. Washington. If you ever looked at his GIJoe comics, he often draws the lettering in the background, and it just kind of adds like this kind of fun touch to it. It's hard to explain. I think I prefer the look of the lettering in this book than most just generic lettering, so that was really stood out to me. And the action's good and everything. The colors are nice. It's a really well done book, and it's I think the biggest thing about it that excited me is that it got me back into Transformers and GIJoe. I hadn't thought about these properties in years. I mean, I look fondly back to the old stuff like from the 80s, but I hadn't thought about picking up a comic in a long time. And the fun thing about in the GIJoe comics, if you didn't know too, that they're doing that, they brought Larry Hama back, and they're picking up the numbering right from his run. So it's a continuation of the Marvel Comics run. It's starting at 301, which is awesome that they didn't relaunch it and start at number 1 again. But I could tell you, I picked that up, and that was great too. And I hadn't read GIJoe in years, but they have like a 2-page like catch up summary in the beginning, so you can kind of catch right. And I was able to jump right in. So if you guys are worried about having to collect all the previous issues, you don't have to. You can just jump right into GIJoe as well. So yeah, I recommend all of these. Like, especially this review's mostly for Transformers, but Void Rivals, GIJoe, and this. And then there's going to be, so the other thing I should mention is the GIJoe comic that Larry Hama is doing is the Marvel continuity. So that is going to continue on its own and be its own separate thing. But anything that's done in the Energon universe, like there's a Duke miniseries coming up and a Cobra Commander miniseries, and I think it's going to be the beginning of Cobra and the beginning of GIJoe in this universe mixed with the Transformers. Here's hoping that they do some of the other weird stuff like Mask. I would love to see. I know IDW did Mask, so I'm hoping they show up. I feel like that could work, because they're almost half Transformers. I'd love to see weird stuff too, like Visionaries, and I think that's Hasbro. If not, correct me in the comments. But I'd love to see stuff like that. I'd love to see all the Hasbro properties in here. Just throw it all in there, make it all work, So, yeah, I'm excited for all of this stuff. It's, if you know me, I love old school cartoons. I love old school comics. So the fact that this captures that is awesome to me, I will say too, it's a little, there's a little bit of darkness to it. And what I mean by that is it's very adult in the fact that, you know, like characters die, humans, you know, they're killed and things like that. So it's not pulling, it's not trying to replicate the cartoon. It's doing like more of like a standard comic take, you know, this kind of stuff you would see in a normal comic and you wouldn't even bat an eye. But if you're looking for a cartoon safe for kids kind of thing, I still think a kid would be fine with it. I'd say this is probably about a PG, maybe a PG-13 rating, you know. There's, like I said, it's not gratuitous, but they are showing, you know, certain things happening like death and things like that, you know, but there's not like gratuitous amounts of blood or anything like that. So, but yeah, no, I think it was great. First issue, it's hard to tell where it's kind of going because it's just like a setup, you know. But I liked it enough that I'm definitely on board for this, you know. So I definitely gonna continue with it to see how far they go. And would I recommend this? Yep, definitely recommend it. The price is $4.99 for the first issue. And it's about, you know, a standard like 32 page comic, something like that. It's a little more oversized than a normal first issue or a $3.99 book. But yeah, no, it's good, and it gets the ICR stamp of approval. So check it out, pick it up. I think it's already on a second and third printing now. So yeah. So definitely grab one, whatever printing it is, and check it out. I think especially if you're a fan of Transformers, I think you'll like it. So, but all right, everybody, thank you for checking out this review. Like, subscribe, share with anybody that you think might get a, you know, kick out of these reviews or any of our other videos on the channel. And as always, read some comics. All right, everybody, have a great week, and we will talk to you later. Bye.